So let's cook. I cleaned out the kitchen to make it look smart for you. All the coats and all the
Tidied my room. My room is a mess. So yeah.
yeah, but I'm not interviewing you.
Ah,
Okay.
well,
There we
tell me how you got started. I read on your biography. I can speak in a minute. That it was when you were at Boy Scouts, was it? That you
Yeah,
picked
that
up
was
on.
it. I was in the 27th Willesden Boy Scouts. I was about 13. There was a couple of seniors, Henry Kay, Bernie Morris, and Bernie played the guitar, an Archtop Gibson, as I remember, and Henry played the Hohner chromatic. I mean, I didn't know there was anything else.
Mm,
And I got my mum to buy me one at Wood Sports, Kensal Rise,
yes.
which was the Hohner 270 in amazing boxes at the time. And off I went. So it was campfires in scouts and youth clubs. I then got up and played. I used to rush home from school on my bicycle in a lunch hour from Kilburn Grammar School home to be able to have a half an hour with my harmonica and then rush back again. I was pretty obsessed with it all.
Mm,
And then it was vamping. It was sort of the Blue Danube, that sort of music. And suddenly I heard that, then I started playing a bit of jazz because I was into sort of Louis Armstrong and Bunk Johnson and Darktown Strutters Paul, and tunes came to me quite naturally. But this was all on a chromatic.
mm. And it was all by ear, just picking.
Yeah, of course.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I was having guitar lessons at the same time, so I did understand chords. I still do. I don't read the notes, but I read any chords. I can give me a sheet music of chords. I can play them on the piano, and then I get the sound. So that sort of helps me a bit. And so that was that.
Mm,
So then I went into work at 16. I started carrying rolls of cloth up the stairs in a shirt factory. And then I ended up being a factory manager at a very good company called Railbrook, groomed for stardom. And my pal Mike said, I'm going to live in Paris. There's some place we can go to. And I said, I'm coming, Mike. So I gave this fantastic job up, as it happens. Everybody thought I was nuts. And I went off to Paris, and it ended up in the 9 Gilles Lecoeur, which is now famously called the Beat Hotel, with all the Ginsberg and Burroughs and all those guys lived in those days. They'd gone by the time I was there. But that was great. And then I'd bust the streets in Paris with my guitar, and a guy called Robin, who was a Canadian big beard, he used to know the sort of Woody Guthrie type songs. And I used to play the harmonica like we used to do one at the end. I used to put my hand on his shoulder and he used to play, and then we used to go out, so long it's been good to know you, or we did pretty well actually, because it was fun. And I used to go to Hohner's in Paris somewhere, and God knows where, and they used to repair it for me when it blew it out. And our signature song was "They Call Me Poor Boy," Elvis Presley. They call me poor boy. So we were a fun group, There was Davy Graham and people like that there who were amazing, and they did really well as well. They were more concert, but there was a small crowd of Brits there, and Paris was just a magic for me. It was total freedom. I've never had anything like it in my life, and I never will. It's just everybody that was there at the time just feels was pretty magical. And I did a CD many years later, or Beat du Coeur, Gilles Lecoeur. So that was lovely. So there you go.
Paris, yeah. Well, what an inspiration. It sounds like that's sort of really cut your teeth.
Oh, and then Mike and we bought 2 Lambrettas from Rome and Milan, sorry, and we ended up driving them from Paris to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? A guitar on the back, and I played the harmonica on Radio Jordan and TV, Radio Lebanon, Beirut, wherever it was, and it was great. I mean, it was just very natural. We were in Greece, for about a couple of months as film extras, and $4 a day, and there was no letters. No, you had to go to the American Express to get your next letters. So you had to find out where the next American Express was, in Istanbul or wherever. And you get there and it'd be the same guys that you saw at the Athens American Express getting their letters. But it was a very small crowd, and it was just quite fabulous.
Sounds very bohemian. I'm jealous. I'm not sure if I could do that.
Well, that was it,
Yeah. I'd need a new passport with Brexit and whatnot. I'd have to call on that.
Yeah. Well, you can still do it in different ways. People hitch, and it were hitching then, and still room for adventure, maybe in a different way.
Yeah, definitely. I think what strikes me is that you're quite a performer. Just listening to the CDs, I haven't watched you play, but even just listening to it, you've got a lot of stage presence there. I mean, that sounds like something. Or did you pick that up naturally? Is it something you thought about a lot?
No, I guess I always like to perform. I mean, the bottom line is, if you want to play the harmonica in a band, you better start your own.
Yeah.
And I had a band called the T-Bones before that, which was jump blues with my son, actually, Alex, and he's a great guitarist, and Alan Darby, who's played with Clapton and a few people. That was real jump blues. T-Bone, as it tells you, it was the rhythm of T-Bone Walker. And I used to perform, but I was a bit shy. I wasn't that good. I used to throw myself in the deep end and hope it worked out. And I used to always surround myself with good guys that we would share the singing. That worked out. And then, I don't know, it's just something that grew. And if you're going to go in, I'm not a big singer, as such, but I just get out there and do it, and you'd be amazed what you can do.
Yeah, I bet.
I like to punch the harmonica. I use it quite roughly, if you like. I don't have it all wrapped up in cotton wool. It's just mistreated. And in fact, we can talk about the harmonicas that I use, which I think help things.
Yeah. Please do. Give me your.
Okay. So, in those early days, I didn't know much, and I joined still got the badge, the National Harmonica Federation. There was Hona Song Band, that was right, the Hona Song Band League. I still got the badge. And Norman's Harmonicas was the only place in England. Well, you rang Norman up. There was a guy who was a sweet guy. I didn't meet until years later. And he basically was the only where in England you could get anything else than Honas. And he said, Peter, you've got to try these herring harmonicas. They're much better. They have, I didn't know what he's, okay, send me one, Norman. They're fantastic. I'll try another one. And I used to get pro harps from him before marine bands. There was a thing called I didn't even know about marine bands. So it was pro harps that I was using, which were sort of Hona diatonics with the black cover.
Yeah.
They had a very dull tone, which I rather liked. The top then was actually matte black. It wasn't shiny black. And there was a lovely tone to it. I don't know, when comparing it now, I think I rather like that. So I got these herrings from Norman, and he used to sell a couple of CDs of different guys. One guy, I forget who it was, he used to play first position in diatonic. Any tune you like, American guy, fantastic. Just the top 3 or 4 holes.
Charlie McCoy or?
No, way before it. I can't remember. A jazzy guy.
Okay.
But it was all the jazz standards you could think of, and basically the top 4 or 5 notes. They were brilliant, terrific, standard out of the box harps, no doubt, or whatever. And I used to play a lot almost in first position on diatonics because I'd learned that in the chromatic. So to me, that was pretty normal. I didn't know that I was playing U-blocking. I was just playing. Right. I mean, originally, I think I did play vamping out of the corner of the mouth because that's what it said on the piece of paper when you got it out of the box. And then I started U-blocking. Now I understand suddenly, 20 years later, well, I'm U-blocking. Yeah. I'm not really much for just sticking to one system. I'll do whatever's necessary. U-blocking I like because I've suddenly discovered, funnily enough, through watching the chromatic evenings and some of the other things, U-blocking I like because I can go woof and I'm octaving. Yeah. U-blocking, you're just putting your tongue on the bottom of the I use square holes, by the way. I can't stand round holes. So I put my tongue in there. Then I can just spread myself a little bit, and I'm octaving. Yeah. Then I can spread the tongue to the left, and I'm right hand. And then I develop this left hand mouth business, and then I can do it's tongue switching, which became all the rage. But I mean, all these things, they're just useful. I just found, why are all the good guys playing upside down? Yeah. If you think of a lot of those good guys, Sonny Terry and all the other guys,
I think Lee Sankey
Paul
does.
Butterfield, and they got amazing sound. I've got a couple of friends of mine, so I realised it's because they're playing the other way around for the low notes. So I decided to try to play at the left hand of my mouth as well. I mean, I don't do it consciously. Sometimes I don't bother, but it's quite interesting. You get different sounds that way, and then if you vamp left hand and you start vamping, it becomes a different thing. So that's that.
What sort of mics are you using? What's the sort of mic and PA setup?
Well, okay, let's just finish with the harps.
Yeah.
So then I came across Brendan Power, the most amazing man on earth for harmonicas, and he was still customizing. I mean, this is in the early 2000s. So I had a whole bunch of Herings that I was then chromatics that I was then getting from Hering in Brazil. Became quite friendly with them, and they would send me quite a lot. And in those days, I was in the fashion business, so it was it was my hobby in a way, you know. So I sent them to Brendan, and he put 270 mouthpieces on because they had round holes, and he actually and he curved the corners. And somehow I always like to get in the thing. Even 10 holes are really good sometimes for blues. It's worth trying. You don't worry about the top notes. You know, you use what you've got, and 10 holes are really good because you can get in really tight too. So that was a real help to me. When the Hering have got a certain sound that you could be rough with them, and you can bend the notes. It's just a sort of, and then the diatonic. It's almost like half a diatonic in there, I found. And I would use any key that I needed. I mean, what was the point of trying to, if the key's in G, particularly with the Gypsy jazz, there's a lot of melody to go on. And I found if I took a G harp, I could play it better than using a C to play in G. So whatever I needed, I would do. Minor keys, I'd use, if it was in A minor, I'd use a C because that's a related minor. So, so it's a 3-hole draw. Yeah, two when I told her what I shouldn't do. But you know, that's a pretty simple way of learning. So if it's in a minor, if it's an E minor, use a G, and that is brilliant. I mean, and a lot of Gypsy jazz is in minor keys, so that's terrific. And I used to also, Richard Slay by then was making all my harps for me, customizing. I went to I went to Joe originally, Joe Falisco, and he made a few harps for me. Then he passed me on to Richard, and Richard's been making them ever since, whatever I need. Now I've got a whole enough, and I just send them back to him for repair. He's really nice like that. Cheers. And he was making minor keys for me, and regular minors, and then natural minors, I should say, and then harmonic minors, which you play in first position. And that fits quite nicely. So I try to give myself a choice of harps for a particular song, and then you eventually fix on one, So I do have a big box of harps when I go out to play, but I have more lists. If I have a sheet list, I have the set list, and I have every harp marked off, so I don't have to fiddle around more than necessary on the gig. Equipment, that's right, you mentioned that. Well, I used to get my mics from a guy called Tom Mix in America. I must have gone through quite a lot, different ones, different elements, mixing this element with this thing. And we're all looking for the Holy Grail. And of course, the Holy Grail is right in your backyard anyway. Yeah. And I'm still bloody doing it. I'm cutting down on that. Now, I always go back to the first I use a Shure 707, a small shell, and a controlled reluctance, and that's what I do. And one particular mic I just love, and it's all beaten up, and that's the way I go for that. And I've tried their static, and I've sometimes used the ceramics are quite good. The crystal, the Sure crystals, but I've never got on with the aesthetic. I don't know why, although people do love them and they do great. I mean, you've got William Clark and all those guys and Rod Piazza, so they must be great, but they've all got their own little thing. And for amps, when I had my T-Bone big blues band, I had a band. I had different ones, a basement, of course, but I had a bandmaster. because I saw Rod Piazza was on a blues cruise and he was playing through 2 bandmasters. And I thought, well, if he can do it, that's got 3 10s and that's got a lovely sound. It's not quite as big. It's a softer sound. You get a better tone out of the bandmaster. So that was what I was doing. I was just on the fly, just trying to work my way through. And, you know, I used to go to Hong Kong, funnily enough, on for business a lot because, you know, I was in the fashion world and I used to, there's a couple of pals I had who, you know, used to play in the clubs there, the residents, English guys. So I used to join in with them when I could. I wasn't that good, but I wanted to just point out, oh, Pete, come and play in the next. And I was always in C, by the way, in those days. Usually, no, I can't remember exactly, but, and amps, then later, the one I got just recently, I don't know if you can see it in the corner there. Anyway, it's a Kalamazoo. Oh, right. which is a small Gibson amp, which Greg Hoyman converted for me. I bought it and had it sent to him. Only a few $100s. It's the most amazing sound. I think, funnily enough, I think the smaller the amp, the better the sound. You start getting these monsters, and unless you're playing to 100 people on a monster stage, it's overpowering. I just think it's better to keep it a bit tidier. You know, I played through a Champ once, which is also very good. So I'm still experimenting on that because I don't, funny enough, with my Gypsy Jazz, that was for blues. Gypsy Jazz, I use a regular mic, SM58, or better still, a Bayer. And there I keep it on a stand and I go straight into a preamp, a speaker, it's a twin speaker preamp. Not even preamp, it's a monitor basically. It's basically for discos and that kind of thing. Big thing, about this big. And that's lovely. And I'm in XLR all the way. So there's no squealing, there's nothing worse than squealing and shouting and you can't control. And then I'll mic it up because there's a line out from the back.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Anyway, that seems to work. Because I'm always after a soft sound rather than a trill. I like it to sit with the band rather than being, you know, out front. You know, when it's time for a solo, okay, give it a bit of welly.
Yeah. No, I like what you said earlier about how you're more, instead of trying to be technical and flashy all the time, you're looking for a sound that sort of fits. Yeah, I think that's a lot more.
I think that's crucial.
In all sorts of instruments. I know many guitar players that could pick up on that advice, but
well, that's it, isn't it? You know, they want to be the loudest. And I mean, you think of the great guitar, you think of all the great guys. You know, they just played it way. Harp players, particularly the old chromatic guys. You know, they just play in front of a microphone. I mean, I read a couple of books. One by Blackie Schaffer, who wrote an amazing book. I was looking at it the other day after I was coming on to speak with you. There's so much stuff. It's got switching. He's got this. He's got that. It's all in there from 50 years ago. And of course, Larry Adler's the cream of the crop. You know, and all the other guys, Charlie Layton, that William Gallison was talking about. They went to those evenings, and William was great, although he didn't get much chance to really talk as much as I would like to have done at the chromatic evening. But he spoke about playing the tune. His whole thing was the tune. Yeah. Which I found really is coming from him as a great jazz player. He's basically saying the tune and the audience. Those two things fit because you're playing to an audience. You know, I don't think the audience really care what harmonica. They don't even know you're playing a harmonica half the time. They don't really care what key it's in and this and that. So I think another harmonica players aren't listening. So I just found that what he was talking about was great, although he plays, I think he uses a standard C and plays in every key or whatever, and I have great admiration for those guys, you know. They're fantastic, you know, and some of your UK guys do the same thing. Brilliant. But, you know, we all do what we can.
Tell me about Red Hot and Live. Was that recorded live? Was that at Le Cube?
Yeah, well, I had one, the first one I did was this.
Yes.
Stretching the Blues, which is Big Jump Blues. That was 20 years ago. I got Slim Jim Phantom, my mate, on drums, and a couple of other people. And that was great because I did an instrumental on that, which was called Stretching the Blues, which I really pleased with, still am actually, because that was sort of a 5-minute, really big swing instrumental on diatonic, and I threw in a bit of, and changed keys and threw in a couple of bit of chromatic in there. But Red Hot Live, well, you won't believe this, but you will. I was looking through, you know, here's we're all down in lockdown, so I'm looking through the old videos, the things that I had. A couple of my T-Bones used to play at the Chelsea Arts Club, and I find this tape, and I went, wait a minute, this CD, this is Cafe Django, Chelsea Arts Club, 2 or 3, 4 years ago. And I went, wow, I forgot I had this. And I remember I'd asked the sound engineer to download, because we were all lined out into the desk. Every instrument was lined out because there was 3 guitars. I'd sport myself to have 3 guitars, accordion, violin, double bass. And I couldn't believe how good it sounded. I couldn't, and he must have really, it must have been the balance that he was getting for the room.
Yeah.
And it just was perfect. I mean, I couldn't believe better. My harmonica I was quite happy with, which usually, you know, I'm not want to change that note. There's nothing you could do. There was no tracks. Yeah. This is it. You like it or lump it. It was the whole 2 hours or whatever the thing was, with people clapping and in between. Although you didn't get a lot of the audience because it was through the desk. It wasn't sort of. And I thought, this is great. I'm going to make this into a CD. And I checked with the club, and they actually agreed that I could use it, because you're not supposed to record at the club, and this was just done through the desk. So the chairman very kindly gave me permission, I think, because I organised some of the music there as well, and you know, my band plays, they like me. Mm-hmm. So that was that, and I sat with a guy on a big screen up in Camden Town. We chopped, because it was like a 2 hour, we had to reduce it to 75, so chopped out a few bits and then rechanged the running order. I think the first track introduces the band. That was the end of the first set, I think, you know. But the band, I enjoy creating a band, creating the guys, and they respond. You know, a bit like, no comparison whatsoever, but if you take a Count Basie or whatever, they were band leaders. They were there. They put it through, but they got the best guys and then supported the guys, so that you were proud to be in his band. And this is what I've tried to do. So if you like, I don't play as much harmonica as perhaps harmonica people would want me to, but that's the way it is, you know.
No, I think it's.
And then I learned to sing, because if you don't sing, you're just playing one after the other, which is what a lot of gypsy jazz, not much of it has vocals. So we're sort of a bit of a rare thing, and I still think we're probably the only harmonica-led gypsy jazz band. It doesn't mean that there's not a lot of great players that have played 2 or 3 recordings with 1 or 2 gypsy jazz numbers, and of course it's the whole style, you know. But I think we're one of the few bands, anyway, that I know of that are led by a sort of, you know, harmonica permanently in it, you know.
The only other gypsy jazz player I really know is Mariam Masalo. But I don't think he's a solid band. I think he's sort of working with different musicians every time. Yeah,
well, you get quite a few guys that do, you know, play gypsy. And there's this guy in America, I forget what his name is. He plays country.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he'll do a couple of recordings with the. But that's different from. So I'm quite absorbed with the music. I know you mentioned a tune on gypsy jazz is great. You call a tune, the whole world knows the key it's in.
Yeah.
Because it's whatever key. Occasionally it varies, but there's a certain tradition. It's a bit like blues. It's like the blues world, gypsy jazz world, and there's certain, and everybody knows each other, and there's a big fraternity going on in the UK here, you know, although it varies. And there's this place called the Cucumber Bar, which is in Battersea, which has been running for years. It may be closing, I don't know exactly, which is quite sad. I've got a gig there actually in November, so hopefully it'll be there still. And everybody's invited, of course. I think it's November 25th, Thursday. And that's been a centre for gypsy jazz. They have a jam and people come along and all the rest of it. Again, I think probably the only harmonica player that turns out. Brendan came out a couple of times and he did some recordings. Brendan's an amazing guy, great respect. I mean, he really helped me with the hearing harmonicas. He even made me, because I used to say, what can we do about this? I like this and I like that. So we did one, which I still use, which is a 16-hole 64, bigger, and he cut it down to 56. And then he put on a mouthpiece, a square mouthpiece from the Meisterklasse, which has got 14 holes. It's fabulous because you get your tongue right in there. I like the square hole somehow. There's an argument, there's more air that goes through a round hole than a square hole. Just get on with it. And so, I mean, I don't mind the round holes now and again. They're very good for third position, you know, George Monica Smith sort of feel. I had a proper 64, but I could never get it to sound right. You know, the original one, which is nice, they're nice size. But Brendan also took a 64 for me and tuned it to G.
Right, sure.
Which is amazing because they're usually in C. So we do a song. I used to do it with "Hey, Let the Good Times Roll." You know, we'll use those kind of numbers. Hey, everybody, get up, you know, and then you take the Louis Jordan intro. Da 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 da. You know, you can really get the big horn section feel, which I find important. I think harmonica. I sometimes think. I'm a horn section because in most bands for harmonica, you don't have a horn section, and if you did, they squeeze you out anyway. So you've got that slight roll about it. Oh, and another part I love more and more with the blues band, but sort of is Steve Baker's SBS. SBS is special. They were built on a 14-hole 365. And he altered the first three notes, so you get a C, E, G twice at the beginning. Absolutely amazing. The tone on those is fantastic because they're slightly wider than the Marine band. You can do anything. So if there's a key in C, if it's in C, they're just or in A, they're great. You take the D or the F. They're a much softer sound than the corresponding one in a Marine band, and they got great for sort of big horn section stuff, and I just loved them. And then Richard used to cut some of them down for me to a 12-hole size, which you could get your hands around, you know. So again, it's all for the feel. That's what I'm anxious about, is this feeling that, you know, you're part of a whole. You're not just you up front, you know, messing around. So that's about it, mate.
No, tell me how you got the how did you first get onto the gypsy jazz scene and sort of bring it back?
Yeah, well, I did know Diz Disley. I was introduced to him in about 2000. Diz Disley brought Django Stefan Grappelli over to UK. But I did a couple of jazz things with him because a friend of mine played violin, and Eddie and but nothing much really. And then Peter Adler's, I knew Larry, and Peter Adler's, his son, I was quite good friends with Peter Adler. You know, I'd stay with the house in Ibiza and we used to hang around. And he said, you know, Dad passed away and we want you to, he invited me to the 25th, no, the 70th, there's a big thing at the Royal Albert Hall. I can't remember when. It was Larry's birthday, maybe 75, I can't remember. Anyway, he said, my dad's passed away and we're putting on this Moro concert and I'd like you to be involved. Okay. Now you've done it, Pete, haven't you? Yeah. So cool, I would love to, yes. And then what am I going to do? But, and Jonathan Shalit was organising it, who'd been Larry's manager for recently and had done a Gloria Gershwin thing. And there was going to be George Martin and Peter Stringfellow was a good friend of his, and then there was Harry Pitch, and I thought, what am I going to do? So I said to Diz, you know, I need to put a little group together. So I got Diz Disley, Eddie on violin, and a double bass player, and another guy, Malcolm Harrison, that used to play with Diz. Yeah. And Diz kindly came over to my place, and I worked out we're going to do Melancholy Baby. There's 4 tracks that Larry did with Django, all in the key of C, by the way, which makes the point. And so he made Django perform them in C because he wouldn't have normally done them. I think none of them. Anyway, he did Body and Soul amazingly. So we did that one, and that went down really well because I was actually scared. I thought the whole place would be full of harmonica players, and there wasn't. I went and sat down at the end. And the guy introduced, he says, my name's Ronald Chesney.
Nice.
A very well-known guy, so he was there. But no, it was very nice. And then I did the second number I did was We Can't Give You Anything But Love, which I did. I wanted to explain the vastness of the harmonica to this audience, so I did it in a chromatic. Then I did it straight on with a straight on first position, and then I swapped harps and did it in cross harp. It works really well. I mean, there's certain songs, they're terrific, you know. So there's, I think the chromatic and the harp and the diatonic work really well. I mean, there's many tunes you can do in both. And because I guess I could play straight harp, it's never a problem for me to play a melody tune in cross harp. And if the note's not there, I don't use it. You know, I don't really start altering notes very much, you know. And then I do agree. I mean, Steve Baker really is a big fan on the country tuning with one thing, and he'll play something, and he definitely, I agree, he does get the note. But I find it's just as easy to. I mean, paddy tuning is quite good as well. That's an interesting one. That's a Brendan one originally, where the G is turned to an A, so you've got a whole full scale. I mean, but then you have to readjust your brains for this, and I find it a bit difficult to sort of, you know, adjust the brain too much with all these tunings. But that's what happened with Larry Adler thing, and I was really so pleased to be in it. And that, well, sorry, that's not really answering your point. So from then I thought, well, let's do a bit more of this. I like this gypsy jazz stuff. And I did something with Diz down in Momo. Momo's was a club in London. Yeah. And then we did something at Chelsea Arts Club. It wasn't called Cafe Django. I think it was Gypsy Jazz, Peter Golding Presents. So I think I did something at the Cucumber. And suddenly one day, I was doing something at the Chelsea Arts Club. By that time, it was getting a bit better, probably 2005. And I spoke to Alan, you know, that I want to make this special evening. Alan was running the bar. I'm going to call it Cafe Django. He said, great, we'll put the tables out, we'll put some check tablecloths on, and the members can sit around. And that's where Cafe Django started. And then I used to get the musicians I knew were from the Cucumber. So slowly I built up different musicians, but it's very much built around the guitarist, and I'm very fortunate. I've got, you know, great guitarists, great musicians, and they're all on that Cafe Django CD. Here you go, folks. And my pal Richard Evans, who plays harmonica, did the cover and really put his heart and soul into it, which is quite great. He's got all the instruments in there. So I guess it's a labor of love. That's why this thing works, you know. I mean, we don't do that many gigs because it's not sort of a pub band. I mean, you know, I can do it with a trio or on my own. I can play swing and all that. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll get a bit more. But you know, we're just one of a million. So you know,
you can say that for every band. I mean, like, you can lose yourself in the numbers of how many songs get uploaded on Spotify and how many are in London. I think it's great. I think it's a fantastic record. I really enjoyed it, like I said.
Thank you. Yeah. And it was spontaneous. I think that's why it works.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, if we would have gone into the studio, and I've been thinking about doing that, it would be so bloody boring.
I think
the studio would just sound like anything else. And
yeah, I think
it wouldn't be boring, but it would be very expensive. I mean, you know, because I had the recording here, so apart from you know, editing it and doing, there's a cost involved, of course there is, but you know, if you could spend so much time in the studio, and then I'd want it to be more harmonica, because if I've got to put the thing together, you know, and then it becomes something different. So I don't know.
I think that summed it up quite nicely about what I like about it. I think so much music nowadays, in any genre, like the pop mainstream stuff, it's almost desperate. It's trying to say, come and have a look at me and give me your like and give me your patronage. I mean, Spotify's not going to pay you, so don't worry about it. Whereas what I liked about your album is that it was just a spontaneous thing. And like I said, you just sort of came across and thought, yeah, let's throw that out there. And it feels more artistic. And I think that's what I really enjoyed about the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, coming from you. So that's great. And I guess I love the Chelsea Arts Club. I'm quite a part of that. So that whole atmosphere, it's like playing to your mates as well. And it's just you get the vibe, and it's right. Sometimes you get that with a lot of live concerts. Sometimes the vibe is right. You watch the Stones sometimes, my favourite band, and they just got it. They're in tune with wherever they are, and it's just happening. And then that you need an audience to spark it, and that was great. I mean, that's the sadness at the moment. There's no audiences, but hopefully, and I mean, there's a lot of amazing harmonica players in Harmonica UK. All those programs you put on, I'm absolutely amazed. I mean, so many, because you don't. I think, funny enough, this Zoom thing has done a lot of good, by default. I mean, the Chromatic Weekend was just amazing, and then some of those that you guys have had on. And I mean, Pete Hewitt is just a lovely guy, and he's fantastic the way he's bringing in his leadership. In fact, he put me onto you, and I much appreciate that. Roger before him was terrific, and I'm still in touch with Roger. He's, I'm a great fan of his. Yeah. So the whole thing works nicely. And I did there's a video, by the way, of the concert, the Larry Adler concert.
Yeah, I need to.
I actually was involved in recording it, getting it recorded, and I did the editing with Roger quite recently.
Brilliant.
And I think, and then now it's in the hands of Peter Hewitt to decide what he wants to do or show it, because it's quite a long thing.
Well, we could probably release it when we release the article as well. That would probably be nice. If you're happy, we could put it on YouTube and shout about it.
No, I mean, let Peter, he's deciding what he wants to do. It's in the hands of Harmonica UK. It's quite a precious thing. So I think you got to be a complete boffin to want to watch it. It goes on for an hour or two, I think. No, but so that's that really, mate. I mean, meanwhile I was running a fashion business.
Yeah, of course.
I forgot about that. I had to pay for my harmonicas.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. I think it can become an expensive passion if you let it. Yeah.
You know what? I keep telling guitarists they're lucky. I mean, it's the most expensive hobby there is. It's like keeping a yacht, It's sort of, do you know what I mean? Because I don't fiddle. I'm not a fiddler, to be honest. I can just about stick a hairpin up and it's not sticking. And the Herrings, the one thing against them is because they sound so great, there's always a disadvantage because they're quite light in their reeds. So you can blow them out much quicker. Oh, fuck, another no gone. But they're one or two good mechanics. You just send it to them. Richard, I send my marine bands to. I use it.
Richard
Slade.
Richard Slade, yeah, of course.
He's the best customizer. He's fabulous, lovely guy. And I used to go to some of these Buckeye. Spa, but before Spa there was a thing called Buckeye, which was a much smaller thing, and Richard would be there, and Joe Flisco, and there was a smaller clique of people that would turn up, and so I tried to work the American, not work it, but I just shared, what was going on in the earlier days. That was sort of 1900, 2000s probably, around that time, So there you go, mate.
I'll be seeing you at November 25th, the Cucumber. What else you got?
Fantastic.
What else is in the works? What are you looking forward to moving on? You've got this great band around you.
Yeah, well, I've got another one in this December at the Chelsea Arts Club, I think. That's more members, but I certainly can invite you. I sometimes get up and play. If we have a band, something's going on, I get up and do a couple of numbers. I mean, I like doing jazz as well, I like jazz, like Autumn Leaves in E minor and use a G.
Yeah,
it sounds great. You can do it in C with an A minor, but the G will sound better. It's slightly lower. It's sort of more moody. I mean, those kind of songs are really good. Or Satin Doll.
Yeah, your standard.
Right. And then or I like to play Nuage. Yeah, it's the tango one. Then it's all tongue blocked. Yeah, because you've got to get that real beautiful sound going through, and that's it. The fortunate thing about Gypsy jazz is a lot is in key of G because it related to the way Django, who we all know didn't have, was an amazing player with two fingers.
Yeah.
Right. So Dominic thing ain't got that swing on B and B flat. No, Sheik of Araby would be in B flat, but he did a lot in the key of G. or the minor keys, D minor. D minor is great because you can use a G minor harp and it just sounds amazing. You know, cross harp in D with G minor, fabulous. Oh, and Richard used to do a couple of double-plated harps. They're like the business. He used to get two harps, two plates, and put them onto one harp, so you get a much bigger sound. Yeah, exactly.
It's really punchy.
I mean, John Cook is very good. He does a lot of good stuff.
You
know. I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I just stay where I am. And I try when new harps come on the market or whatever, new tunings, I try them. And to be honest, I just don't. It's like, fuck it, I wasted my money again. You know, and it's not them, it's me. It's just.
Yeah. I always say whenever I get a student on diatonic or chromatic, I'm just like, buy one and wear the hell out of it. And then if you keep liking it, then get it maintained, or buy a new one and keep going. If you don't like it, then try another one. But I think that particularly for beginners, less experienced players like yourself, that they've just got to get over that new instrumentness. I think that we all sort of get sometimes is, oh, it's all nice and pretty. No, you've got to go shove a song out of it and make it work for a while. You know?
Right, and they'll say, oh, if this is no good, I'm going to get another one. I just saw it advertised.
They're workhorses. They're working instruments. They're meant to be used. They're not just supposed to sit there and look pretty. And
well, it's a bit like the media now. You're never satisfied. You've got this gene, that's no good. You've got to get this one. And with harmonicas, the chromatics, I can't afford them. I mean, they're 500, 1,000, 2,000. I noticed Cy Leo, amazing, and he was playing a beautiful harp called the Yes, of course, I rush online. I love the idea. It's a solid wood. I mean, the guy, that appeals to me, a hard wood bass, so you're going to get the feel. It's not aluminium. It's going to be perfect. $2,000. And
who's got
it's a lot of money because, and then there'd be 6 big holes, 16 hole, and I'd do a 48 version, I think. Well, one day, when it's my birthday, I'll treat myself, maybe. But it won't make me any better. That's the thing. It's like, you get a Ferrari and then you go back to the car you had before, maybe. I don't know. It's an experience rather than... I
increasingly see it as the time you have to practice, or as in your case, the time you go out to actually interact with other musicians and see how you can fit in.
Yes.
Player is how much time do they actually spend practicing, which I'm always talking to my students the day before. I'm like, so you spent 10 minutes practicing last night, not 15 minutes every day like I asked you. And that ability to just go to a jam and make mistakes, I think, is important, and to just go out there, busk on a street corner, do whatever you got to do to just
that's good.
Just push yourself.
Busking is very good. It makes you fearless.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Although practicing, I find, I used to do a lot of it. I can't do it much anymore. Or even as an article, I bought that CD from Paul Butterfield. There's a whole tuition and a CD, and you listen to him, and it's absolutely amazing. But you have to focus so much as you get older. It's harder to focus. So great respect again for people that practice and do all this stuff. It's great. So I find I work well if there's a gig coming up. I've got to get together. Give your students, tell them there's a concert they got to do it next week.
Yeah.
Do they get other instruments coming in? Do you teach them? What do you teach them? Just harmonica?
So at the school, I teach music, so I teach the subject. But I also have private tuition, so people want to teach.
Yes.
But that's
so. What music do you teach? Is it music?
So
I'm sorry.
On the diatonic, it'll be blues.
No, but on the school.
Oh, at the school. I teach more around theory. So I teach them to understand, pitch, rhythm, and things, and I'll show you the context of classical, and then I'll take the theory and I'll show it in different contexts.
Yes.
So, especially with the very young ones, they got to learn pitch, they got to learn rhythm, they got to learn tempo.
That's fabulous.
And they got to learn dynamics as well. But then we see how that works in jazz, then how those 4 things work in classical, how those 4 things work in rock music or what have you. And then they sort of go, what are we listening to now? And they're like, rhythms, because they're interested in rhythms, or what we're listening to now, pitch changes, and that sort of gets them going. And then as they get older, then they can start writing 3-chord songs on ukuleles and guitars and pianos. And
what age are they, Sam?
Between 3 and 11.
Oh,
So yeah,
oh, amazing, fantastic.
yeah,
Oh, I wish I'd have gone to that.
yeah,
You
yeah,
see,
yeah.
we coming up, we just did it a different way, and I mean, I'm still there, but and so great respect. And then those that went to Berkeley, I mean, that guy Thad, I think it was from Thaddeus, went to Berkeley, and he was fabulous. But I mean, he got so technical. But I picked up one or two things from him. There was one thing. It was like a melodic blues, a melodic scale blues, and you just press in. Yeah, you flatten the third. I mean, that I can get. So you flatten the whole two, and you're away. You know, just button in. That's another good way, by the way, that a lot of those guys used to do, which I noticed recently. I think even Larry Adler, they play with the button in. So you play C, but you're playing in C sharp. So suddenly all the notes are different, and when you let it out, there's a bit better sound coming through it. And I think Ronald Chesney used to do that in the Goon show, which I used to listen to recently as well. In the last 2 or 3, he played C. In the last 2 or 3 choruses, the band and the whole thing would modulate to C sharp, so you go out on a flying high. So there's a lot to be done. It's great. That's fabulous. I mean, wow.
They're bringing up. I think we're coming to time. Is there anything else you want to?
No, I think that's fine, really, mate. I mean, things like that. No, but I made a few notes, but I can't remember what I.
No, don't worry about it. I like to just let things roll and be spontaneous. That's...
Yeah, I mean, there was one thing that I mentioned, not important, but I stumbled across in the late 1990s the American Harmonica News, which was a magazine coming from America, fabulous, all about harmonicas. And wow, my jaw dropped, and I think that's where I saw an ad by Joe Falisco, you know, and that's how I got in touch. And then they featured about 2 years later. The guy did a little story on 1 page on my Stretching the Blues. I mean, to me,
nice, yeah.
It's to nobody else, but just to me, I was just excited. Because I found that very rewarding, because America is very much a good home of blues, you know, sources, as we know. You know, although the British contingent have done brilliantly well here. I mean, we have our own sound and our own thing. I mean, there's not much. There's some gypsy jazz in America and some good bands, but you know, they're not harmonicas and that. They're very based. It's a different kind. I mean, the great thing about gypsy jazz is there's no drums.
Yeah.
So you can really hear the chords. I think that's something. I think that's possibly one of the reasons I love it, because you know it's easier to keep your rhythm and following the chords than it is if there's a drummer quite prominent.
Yeah.
Many of them choose to be. Where are you based, Sam? In London, yes?
Yeah, Twickenham.
Where?
Twickenham.
Twickenham. Oh, it's down the road.
Oh yeah, sure. Where are you?
Chelsea.
Oh yeah, easy. District line for a little while. Yeah, I used to work in Chelsea. Yeah. Ages ago.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I'll drop you an email because we'll get a beer sometimes. I want to hear more about.
Yes.
Hear more about you riding a Vespa all around Europe and the Middle East.
Oh, that was just a magical moment. I wrote a diary every single day. Believe it or not, I'm still in touch with Mike. He lives with his wife down in France and in the Dordogne, and you know that's a 60-year. You know, we were teenage pals and we're still doing it. You know, he was an artist, so while I was playing the streets and all the rest of it, he was at the Plaster Ted painting, doing portraits and things, and that was quite a time. Yeah, it was carefree. It was like, and it was
nothing like.
Yeah. Yeah, man, we must get together. Come over.
Love for that. I'll drop you an email when I do all the edits and things, and yeah.
Yeah. It'll be absolutely fine. I won't, you know, when there's a rugby match, I won't be down your way.
Yeah, definitely. You're more than welcome.